on CTV News at 5.
I cannot say every year there could be works or not, but I can say they're more prevalent every year, actually.
Unwelcome blooms. It's that time of year to watch out for blue-green algae in maritime waterways.
Once it got past a certain point, I said, no, there's no turning back now.
And it runs in the family. 3 generations take a hike together and conquer Maine's highest mountain.
Patchy showers, drizzle, and fog tonight, with dreary conditions holding over into Friday.
Live from the Maritime's News Center, this is CTV News at 5.
Good evening and welcome to CTV News at 5. I'm Maria Pano-Palace. Thank you for joining us. First at 5 tonight, troubled waters. This time of year, it's not uncommon to hear about beach closures due to blue-green algae. The sinister bacteria can be harmful to humans and especially to pets. CTV's Emma Convey joins us with some timely advice before diving in. Emma.
Well, Maria, blue-green algae is right on schedule. Halifax Regional Municipality says this is the time of year when they do start to see these blooms at beaches. This warning sign was put up at Oakfield Provincial Park, an alert to beachgoers about the presence of blue-green algae in the water.
They are photosynthesizing bacteria, like I said, that live in lakes, and sometimes when conditions are good for them, they form these blooms or they form mats on the bottom of lakes that can sometimes produce toxins.
The municipality says the blooms they see tend to blow in during the morning when the water is calm. She says typically blue-green algae is green and through the water column, but it's not always visible. So their teams closely monitor the beaches they know have had it in the past.
You can't tell by looking at it whether or not it's toxic, even if you're an expert on this, because there are so many species.
Montgomery says there are mats and blooms. Mats lay on the bottom of a watercourse and release significant toxins.
All the research that we've seen is even if there's lethal amounts of toxin in this mat, the water above it tends to be pretty low or even non-detectable.
This team at Dalhousie University has been researching the bacteria for around 14 years. This professor says it's become more common in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick lakes.
So the pigment have to be firstly analyzed in the lab. And the second direction of research now I'm trying to do with the monitoring is using the drone. That means we fly over the lakes and take some pictures.
So far, this team has learned that more blooms are showing up due to climate change. And when fertilizers like pesticides make their way into the waterways, it can also create more blooms.
When we talk about cyanobacteria or blue-green algae, they should be potentially toxic. But we cannot say they are dangerous until we test.
He says if you see a bloom on the surface of water, let an expert know to test it. And the peak of blue-green algae season is August. It can last in some cases until November. One thing to note is it's not just blue-green algae that can be found in these waterways. Other bacteria aren't quite as visible. So advice from experts is to avoid drinking lake water altogether. That goes for pets as well, as you just don't know what's in the water. Maria.
You never do know. Thank you, Emma. CTV's Emma Convey for us in Bible Hill, Nova Scotia. All right, over to the anchor desk we go now, where Todd Battis is standing by with a look at the headlines. Hi, Todd.
Always a good rule, Maria, don't drink the lake water. Okay, coming up at 6, dozens of emergency medical dispatchers in Nova Scotia remain on the picket line this evening. Wages, staffing numbers, and working conditions, those are some of the issues. For the strike, the employees say their pay doesn't match that of other dispatchers and emergency services like the RCMP, and we will hear from both sides coming up at 6. Halifax police looking for the driver of a motorcycle who is being accused of intentionally hitting an e-bike rider on the Dartmouth side of the McDonald Bridge. A motorcyclist was heading onto the bridge when the rider made a U-turn and drove onto a crosswalk and hit a man on one of those electric bikes. We will hear from that man tonight. We'll also have a follow-up story to a report we brought you earlier this week. There is a temporary solution to that bridge that needs to be replaced in a rural area of Westmoreland County in New Brunswick. The area now has a contingency plan. That trailer is part of it. Derek Haggett will explain when you join us tonight at 6 o'clock. Right now, Kayla Mitchell is in the Weather Center with our first look at the forecast.
And soggy weather in the Maritimes today as a couple of bands of both showers and a few downpours and thunderstorms made their way across parts of the region, brought in some highly varied rainfall totals. I don't have final reports yet because that rain and still coming down for some areas, but there were some personal weather stations out of the west of Nova Scotia where some of those downpours and a few thunderstorms moved through earlier in the day. That clocked in with some rainfall totals between about 30 and 60 millimeters. Now, because of the cloud cover and the wet weather moving through, temperatures being held down today compared to the last couple of days. At this hour, they're mostly in the high teens and low 20s, but there is still a high level of humidity in the air, and of course the rain is just adding to that. So humidex values are still making it feel, in a lot of cases, anywhere between the low and high 20s. Checking in on the winds. They're mostly out of the east and northeast right now, and they're being sustained between about 10 and 20 kilometers per hour, except stronger out of the east in Inverness County in Cape Breton. And northern Inverness County is underneath a wind warning, and that's because of enhancement over the Cape Breton highlands there. Sustained wind at 67 kilometers per hour Grand Etang, but a gust up to around 91. Those stronger wind gusts are expected to continue until the overnight hours, at which point they will begin to diminish. Let's take a look at things on radar and satellite. Here's the main band of showers just exiting western parts of Prince Edward Island up in the north of New Brunswick. But even below that, there's still patchy showers, drizzle and fog that's going to be lingering for other parts of the region for tonight. And a few downpours and a couple thunderstorms actually approaching the Atlantic coastline of Nova Scotia. Keep track of that and bring you an update on what we can expect over the next couple of days when I'm back a little bit later on. Maria.
Excellent. Thank you, Kaylin. We'll see you just a little later on. Right now, though, it seems there's a new scam to worry about every day. As CTV's Pat Foran reports, fraudsters are even looking to exploit online posts and complaints.
I was not happy. I was really upset.
Tracy Healy of Toronto was visiting British Columbia in March and had a great trip. But when she was to fly home in April, she missed her first flight. She did make it to Vancouver Airport for her connecting flight, but was not allowed to board.
So I'm sitting at the airport and I'm panicking because I need to get back home to Toronto and I have work the next day.
Healy decided to vent her frustration by contacting WestJet through social media.
I log on to Facebook and then I found the WestJet customer service Facebook group.
She says almost immediately she got messages from people claiming to be WestJet employees who wanted to help.
We want to make this right for you. We're going to give you a refund and we're going to pay for your flight home.
Healy says she was asked for her credit card and banking information so they could give her a $3,000 refund. But instead, the money was taken out of her account.
I got scammed $3,000 from somebody claiming to be a WestJet customer service rep in Kenya.
When CTV News reached out to WestJet, a spokesperson said, WestJet will never request payment or sensitive personal information through unofficial channels such as unsolicited WhatsApp messages, calls, or non-verified social media accounts.
Criminals will monitor the comment section of so many recognizable brands.
Cybersecurity experts say you should avoid posting comments online and not interact with companies through social media platforms. Only deal with them through regular channels.
Reach out to us through our published phone number and we will help you. Nothing else should be trusted.
Healy says she should have noticed some red flags, but says she was frazzled and frustrated being stuck in an airport.
I can't believe I fell for this. He caught me at a moment when I was primed for the picking.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Thank you, Pat. All right, time for our first break here on CTV News at 5. When we come back, we'll look ahead to Emancipation Day. August 1st marks 192 years since slavery was abolished in the British Empire, including in Canada. How the date is being commemorated here at home. Next.
Don't miss Crescendo Fest from July 28th to August 1st. Celebrate Black music and culture with a 2-day conference, plus musical events around Halifax and surrounding communities. For more information, visit crescendofest.com.
Welcome back. August 1st marks Emancipation Day and will commemorate the anniversary of the British government's decision to abolish slavery in 1834. Across the Maritimes and in Canada, communities will gather to honor the anniversary, but also to celebrate Black culture and resilience. Russell Gross is the Executive Director of the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia and a good friend of this show. We're so happy that you could join us once again, Russell, to talk about Emancipation Day. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Glad to be here.
Let's talk a little bit more about Emancipation Day. A lot of people might not be aware of Canada's history with slavery.
Yeah, that's you know, a part of the hidden truth that's out there is that, you know, that slavery didn't exist in Canada, and in our country there was unfortunately a thriving slave trade business that, you know, caused a lot of harm to the communities. And when we think of Emancipation Day, it's a day of solemn reflection, but it's also a day of celebration as well.
Absolutely, and celebration because of the resilience of the Black people and Black communities.
Especially here in Nova Scotia. And Nova Scotia, of course, is the birthplace of Black culture and heritage in Canada, with the oldest multi-generational communities. And I think, you know, it's the story of resilience, the story of overcoming that major adversity of being an enslaved group of people to make vibrant communities. You know, in the province of Nova Scotia, historically, there were 52 historic Black communities, and you know, they left an indelible mark on the country.
Absolutely, and continue to do so. Emancipation Day in Canada was officially recognized in 2021. Nova Scotia, the first province to do so. Why did it take so long, though? I mean, this is only the fifth year that we're marking it.
Yeah. So in other parts of Canada, there have always been some minor sort of Emancipation Day recognition, but it hasn't been, you know, something that's been a leading charge as it is now today. And, you know, it's a little bit of a Nova Scotia story. So Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, you know, kind of had pushed the envelope and joined her early stages in the Senate in trying to make this become something that's nationally recognized. And then the governments of the day followed suit, and of course Nova Scotia was one of the first provinces. And I think it's a great opportunity to create a greater understanding. And when we think of Black history, it's always kind of put in a silo that it's something separate. And I think this is an opportunity to you know, move into a space where it's Canadian history, it's Nova Scotian history, it's a history that we all are a part of.
I think that's your purpose, to elevate it just so that it's not just Black history, it's Canadian history, it's world history at that. I want to talk a little bit about what we're teaching in schools. Do you think we're learning enough about slavery, Canadian slavery in our schools here? I
think there's been a big shift. I think that, you know, the movement is happening. I can remember many years ago when I was in grade schools, and, you know, I didn't even learn much about my own history. You know, and there were institutions like the Black Cultural Centre that got developed that helped move that marker forward. But for the most part, you know, Black history was something that was a footnote in history pretty much when it came to the education system. And I can remember, you know, being in, you know, grade 5 or grade 6 and you know, learning about in social studies the communities that were around the province, and, you know, seeing pictures depicted of Black people being enslaved. And, you know, for me, for many years, that became the identity that I felt my people were, you know. And it wasn't until later in life, as I started to learn more and discover more, that I understood that one act of control that was imposed on a culture and on a history wasn't defining that culture and history. And so Emancipation Day is a great opportunity to share that, to share this story, to share that this, you know, resilience that's come from Black Canadians.
How can people get involved tomorrow and on Saturday?
Yeah, well, tomorrow there's going to be a flag raising at Province House, and it's going to be the official launch of Emancipation Day, which happens to be August the 1st and falls on a Saturday this year. And then on the Halifax waterfront, there is going to be our annual Emancipation Day celebration with some proclamations, some entertainment, some food, and a great venue for families and friends to get out to understand a little bit more about an important part of our culture.
Excellent. Well, it's so nice that you took some time for us. I know it's a busy week for you. Thanks so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of the summer.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Russell Gross, of course, is the Executive Director of the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia, and we're so glad he could join us this evening. Here is Kaylin.
Thank you, Maria. Well, it's been a very cloudy and soggy day in the Maritimes. So let's take a look at the view around Sydney, Cape Breton earlier today. Now the cloud ceiling there got a little bit lower as we went through the day and then eventually opened up into some passing rounds of showers. And there's some more wet weather expected for Sydney and areas of Cape Breton as we make our way through this evening and tonight, even with some damp conditions holding on for the Maritimes into Friday. I'll have more on that forecast coming up after the break.
Kaylin Mitchell joins us now. And Kaylin, my goodness, what a start to the day in the city. It was just teeming out there. And I hear that it's pretty rainy in some other parts throughout the region as well.
Yeah, certainly. With some of these bands of some showers and some rain that's moved through, the nature of that rain has been almost a little bit tropical because it has come in the form of some downpours and a few thunderstorms. Thankfully, it's all moving along at a fairly good pace. So in most cases, that heavier rain didn't linger for much more than an hour or two. And it is needed moisture in the region, of course. We take a look at conditions here in Wellington, Nova Scotia for our sunrise and sunset times. Good news is, of course, some of that rain has fallen in the vicinity of that wildfire we were keeping track of to the south of Riverview in the southeast of New Brunswick. And I don't have final totals for that area as yet, but I would estimate from some surrounding weather stations that in the vicinity of that wildfire, maybe a decent 10 to 20 millimeters of rain may have fallen. Other areas in the region that did get into some of those downpours that Maria was talking about, well, I have some personal weather station and some personal rain gauge reports that some of those totals actually climbed up between 30 and 60 millimeters. And for a few parts of the southwest of Nova Scotia, there were actually a few severe thunderstorm warnings that were issued very early this morning. Taking a look at our weather systems map, barometric pressure is a little bit towards the lower side now at the approach of this slow-moving low pressure system, and it's sitting in that trough in the jet stream. We basically talked about that all week long as it was going to be our weather maker for the end of this week. As we take a look at things on radar right now, we can see the very patchy coverage of the showers and downpours around the region. A couple areas that I want to point out as we look up towards western Prince Edward Island and up towards the northeast of New Brunswick. You can see this band here. That's what's left of the band of downpours that crossed the southwest of Nova Scotia this morning and then went into southeastern areas of New Brunswick, parts of Prince Edward Island, now exiting the west of PEI and up around the northeast of Nova Scotia. Now there's also still a couple downpours and a few thunderstorms located right up against the Atlantic coastline of Nova Scotia. And this is coming in right now, basically towards Dartmouth, and then extending up the eastern shore towards locations like Clam Harbor and then Ecum-Secum. So there could be some bursts of heavier rain, but once again, this is moving through fairly quickly, so it shouldn't be sitting over any given community or any one community for a prolonged period of time. There's also still some showers ongoing in Cape Breton, and Cape Breton will be one of the locations that even later into this evening and tonight, there may be a chance of a downpour or small thunderstorm. Taking a look at our forecast timeline for cloud cover and precipitation then, we do continue through the night with patchy drizzle and fog and showers for the Maritimes and a lot of cloud cover. And that lingers straight on into Friday morning, where throughout the day on Friday it remains cloudy with patchy showers, drizzle, and fog. So damp weather continuing into the end of this week. However, there will be a shift for the weekend ahead with at least some partial clearing Saturday into Sunday. One wind warning in effect, that's for northern Inverness County in Cape Breton. Some of the peak wind gusts could reach 100 kilometers per hour into the overnight before those winds begin to diminish into tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's winds for the Maritimes, a little bit variable in direction, mostly sustained 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. Low temperatures in the forecast for tonight for the region will be mostly in the mid to high teens. Doesn't cool off all that much. Edmundston, the northwest of New Brunswick, getting down to around 11 degrees. And then here's a look at the high temperatures for Friday. And like today, they're going to be mostly in the high teens and low 20s, held down because of the cloud cover, showers and drizzle where that is present. Let's take a look at our weather watcher for tonight. And tonight's weather watcher is coming in from 6-year-old Kelsey Sams from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. Kelsey has sent us a drawing of jumping into a lake to go for a swim on a summer day. Thank you, Kelsey. Great job on that drawing. Weather watchers can come into CTV Weather Watchers, P.O. Box 1653, Halifax, Nova Scotia, B3J2Z4, or email kaylin.mitchell@bellmedia.ca. Maria.
Thank you, Kaylin. Time for a break. When we come back, we'll climb this mountain.
I'm Josh Smith in Moncton. 3 generations, 1 mountain. Learn about a family that conquered Maine's tallest peak. More on that coming up on CTV News at 5.
Mornings Waterways with Aaron and Peter. 10 questions, 60 seconds. If you know all the answers, you're winning $1,000.
We play $1,000 Minute every weekday at 7 a.m.
Welcome back. So for most, summer vacations mean beaches, theme parks, maybe some festivals. But for one New Brunswick family, it meant climbing the tallest mountain in Maine. And as CTV's Josh Smith reports, it was worth every step.
Earlier this week, 3 generations from one New Brunswick family traded screens for hiking boots. From 8 to 75, they literally climbed a mountain.
This is my 3rd year in a row doing Mount Katahdin, and it almost takes a year to forget how grueling the mountain really is.
Over 5,200 feet, it's Maine's highest point, standing taller than any peak in the Maritimes.
My expectations were just you come as far as you can and see how we do, and you see like we all made it to the top, which was really special.
At only 8 years old, plenty of hikers were surprised to see the youngest member reach the summit.
Yeah, it was fun, but in most parts were easy, but most were also hard. At the end, I was so sore and stuff that I threw up twice.
At 75, the oldest member didn't even plan to go at first, but he's glad he did.
I've walked a few rounds of golf this year, and that's about it. So I wasn't really trained for it.
Paul Arsenault says it was a great learning experience for the young hikers.
I won't deny that it wasn't hard. One of my sons kind of shadowed me on the way up, and another son shadowed me on the way down, so I felt really comfortable that way. Once it got past a certain point, I said, no, there's no turning back now.
No matter the age, everyone agrees it was a unique bonding experience.
Just like spending time with my family, and yeah.
So it was really neat to look forward and see him, and then look back and see my father-in-law also climbing over these big boulders. It did make me think at one point it'd be cool someday to be able to do this with my son and hopefully his kids.
Reaching new heights together and making unforgettable memories along the way. Josh Smith, CTV News, Moncton.
What an awesome experience. Well done, you guys, and the pictures to prove it. I just love it. What a great story.
Certainly looked like they had a lot of fun. Now, of course, we know that today and tomorrow, ideal hiking conditions in the Maritimes, interrupted a little bit.
Like the sounds of that?
By wet weather moving through.
Oh.
Not ideal, I should say.
Okay.
Because of the showers and drizzle around. However, as we look towards the long weekend, we're going to see a little bit of change. Partial clearing, sun breaks through a little bit, temperatures come up. So I'll be talking more about that coming up CTV News at 6.
Excellent. We'll see you and Todd at 6. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone. The national news is next.